Well, I'm in the Racing Post offices today with editor Bruce Millington. Thank you, Bruce, for agreeing to do this. Can we start from basically your background? What is your background and when you first became aware of or interested in horse racing?
Blimey, I grew up in South Nord in South London. You know, we're probably 20 miles from the nearest horse. Family and friends had no interest whatsoever, and it was probably only when I was about 12. My oldest brother's friend, his dad died, and he came to live with us, and he was into horse racing. He used to have a few bets on a Saturday afternoon, and I used to sit there. Before that, I'd kind of thought horse racing. I was just football mad non-stop, and I kind of thought horse racing was, I'd never really engaged with it. But then I started cheering his bets on and getting into it that way, and gradually, well, not gradually, very quickly actually, that grew into quite a passion. So it was stimulated through betting. I suppose as I went through my teens, I just got more and more into it. And when I was about, I think it was 17, I went to White City for their last ever meeting, White City Grounds. It was the Derby final, and I was absolutely captivated. And then after that, I went to Catford Dogs, and I just used to go to Catford Dogs 3 nights a week from when I was about 16, 17. Have a few bets. We just basically lived and breathed it. Loved my racing as well. I was at school at the time, and I did half a term of A levels, but I just wanted to work, and I wanted to work in the betting industry. So I wrote to all the major bookmakers at the time and said, "Have you got anything?" And Mecca Bookmakers wrote back and offered me a job in their credit office in central London. So I was just turned 17, and I started work there basically I had 3 jobs. One, I was a board marker, so it was the credit office, all the banks of telephonists. Obviously there was no internet in those days, this was 1984, and there was a huge board at the end, and I had to do the old board marking, write the results up, put the shows up, and then I'd go around and collect the slips that the telephonist's hand wrote the bets on, and put them through a camera before the race so that they could be verified. And I absolutely loved that. That was fantastic. Worked with some really lovely people, got bang into it, and from then on, really, I just knew that was what I wanted to do.
So how did that progress into journalism then?
Well, funny enough, I'd always wanted to be a sports journalist. I mean, it was a bit of a lofty ambition, not really something that I ever thought would happen. But I left Mecca in the summer of '85 because there was a job advertised at Hackney Greyhound track in the racing office, and I was quite intrigued by it. It's advertised in the Evening Standard, and I went for it and got it, and that was absolutely fantastic. I did a year at Hackney. Those incredible Saturday morning meetings when everyone was there punting away 8 races. It was absolutely superb. And I ended up being assistant racing manager at Hackney. Loved it to bits, but I got to know some of the journalists from the sporting life, notably Bob Betts, who's remains a close friend, and someone, I guess, in my career, a small number of people have opened doors for me without which I would never have got anywhere near where I was, where I have done. And Bob's really the main guy. I got to know him really well. He's a lovely fellow, absolute gent. And I said to him, look, ultimately I'd really fancy getting into newspapers. And he said, well, okay, well, I'll see if anything crops up at the Sporting Life. In the meantime, after a year at Hackney, a similar vacancy in the racing office as assistant racing manager at Catford materialised. And Catford was nearer to where I lived. It was the track I used to go to. I absolutely love Catford. So I went there and did another year at Catford. And again, just magical times. Loved it to bits. It was just incredible. The characters you meet and the adventures and the stuff that happened, it was just phenomenal. But then Bob said to me, look, I can get you some shifts on the Sporting Life. So I said, great. And I was doing some casual shifts while still working at Catford. And then towards the back end of 1986, Robert Maxwell had this idea of opening up a rival newspaper to the London Evening Standard. And, in those days, every paper had a Greyhound correspondent. And Maxwell's obviously owned the Sporting Life at that point, and he said to the guys at the Life, at the London Daily News, you're not allowed to take anyone from the Life. So Bob put me in for this job. I was only 19, and I got it. and so I became greyhound correspondent for the London Daily News, which I was absolutely thrilled to bits with. Really couldn't believe it was happening, and had 6 really fantastic months there. But unfortunately, the paper folded. So from there, I freelanced for about 9 months at the Sporting Life, at the Independent, at the Telegraph, at the Mirror, and then a job came up at the Sporting Life on the Greyhound desk, and so this was, I think, in the April of 1988, I joined the staff there full time.
So the greyhounds have really been a bigger part of your early development than the horse racing.
Well, greyhounds were what I worked in, but I mean, I think, at that time, the 3 big shows in town as far as betting were concerned were horse racing, greyhound racing and dogs, and I kind of embraced all 3 pretty passionately. I mean, I was going to Cheltenham every year from 1985, and I absolutely loved racing. I worked in greyhounds, and obviously that was my profession, if you like, at that time. But and I was mad on horses as well. I just loved all 3 really. I've always been very enthusiastic punter, and in those days I was betting on those 3. Obviously now it's proliferated. You can bet on pretty much anything, and I tend to do that as well. But that was a really happy period, But then obviously getting onto the Sporting Life was great, because it gave me the security of a staff job, and again, Sporting Life Greyhound desk was the most fun I ever had working. I think some of the characters there are just absolutely legendary, and you're getting paid to go greyhound racing and report on greyhound racing. It was just phenomenal.
This is the second time I've been lucky enough to come to the Racing Post offices. I must admit I was stunned at the amount of people that work here. It's a massive operation. How many people does the paper employ?
We've got 300 full-time employees, plus we've got some developers working off-site as well. So it's a big operation now. And if I look at the difference between now and 30 years ago when I was on the Life, it was basically journalists on the Life, and then you had a personnel department of a couple of people. Someone did the accounts. There was a general manager to hold it all together. Now you've got product teams, marketing, tech. It's a huge operation.
So you've obviously come up through the ranks, and you're now the editor of the biggest sort of racing paper in the country. How do you cope with the pressures of running a publication that's published 7 days a week?
I mean, to be honest, you say publishing 7 days a week. I mean, that was certainly the kind of regime I worked to when I became editor in 2007, because the paper was absolutely the king, and it's probably still the most important product that we produce, but it's one of a number of products. So it's kind of those 7 print deadlines are really just a kind of aggregation of everything we've been doing during the previous 24 hours digitally. So we operate on a digital first basis. Our aim is to break stories first and fastest on social media, develop them online, deliver them on mobile, and then aggregate what we've done in newspaper and iPad form in terms of the daily edition. In terms of pressure, I mean, I don't really see it as pressure. My wife is a paediatric nurse, and I quickly learned that having a comma in the wrong place is kind of irrelevant compared to what she does when she's dealing with children who are hiding under the bed because they've got their first bout of chemotherapy and they don't want a needle stuck in them. So that keeps you in perspective. That's not to say that I have a laissez-faire attitude. Obviously, I mean, there is pressure. There's every second is a deadline, and that's what I love about digital publishing. If you get a story now, you don't have to sit on it and hope that no one's got it during the day. You can just bosh it straight out there, and that's good. We don't like getting beaten to stories. We don't like, we don't like mistakes. Those are the kind of things that bring a bit of pressure. But like I say, I mean, it's not. I've quickly learned that pressure is relative.
So you're in what some might see as a precarious position, having to write and report on what's a small community and group of sports. How do you balance between getting good stories out there but not upsetting people in the game, so to speak?
Yeah, it's slightly different for us. I mean, if you're one of the national dailies, I guess you're outside the village to an extent. We're very much inside the village, and you have to, you do have to tread carefully. At the same time, though, we're a newspaper, and people have to understand that. I mean, you get situations where people say, "Well, why did you do that?" And you kind of think, "Well, because we're a newspaper. That's what we do." It can be difficult, but I think at the end of the day, we've got a responsibility to make sure that we cover the sport, with passion, with authority, comprehensively. We help to promote it when it needs promoting, but also to criticise and to question and to probe when it needs it. So, we do what we do, and obviously, sometimes you get flack, and sometimes the only way you can tell whether you've dealt with something as fairly as possible is that you're getting kind of equal amounts of flack from both sides of an argument, if you like. And that's not really how you want to be judged, but sometimes that's the only way you can tell that you've done something well.
So you talk about the flack. What would you say to people that would sometimes accuse you of giving people an easy ride because of their prominent position in racing or greyhound racing?
I don't think we do, to be honest. I mean, I can't think of any examples of where that would be a justified accusation. So I'm not aware that happens. I am well aware that whatever you do now, you're going to get flack, unfortunately. I always say if Mother Teresa was on Twitter, she gets slagged off. It's a pretty kind of negative kind of environment at times. And you if you choose to put yourself in it, you have to expect that you're going to get flack. But at the same time, there's people who criticise who it doesn't particularly bother me, and there's a few people who it does, but you have to learn to live with it.
And on a more positive note, what would be the most memorable issue of the Racing Post that you've put together in your time as editor?
Well, I mean, it's obviously a very sad occasion, but I thought we did Henry Cecil's death really well. And by that I mean I hope we did him and his family and his memory proud, because Cecil was such a sensational story. His comeback from night shift winning the Oaks and then obviously through to Frankel was just such a magnificent story, and then the tragedy of his death. But I felt like the day after he died, the Racing Post that we put out that day, I was really proud of, because so much has to go right in those situations in order to be able to get it exactly how you want it, and the team absolutely responded and was superb. And when I say team, it's not just the writers, it's the subs, it's the graphics people, it's everyone came together and we produced something that I thought was really special, and yeah, that's the one that I think I was most proud of.